Well, hello and welcome everybody. It's fantastic to have your company for our Menopause Pro Roundtable. This is a series of discussions that we're putting together on various topics. And the topic this evening, we're going to be talking about the funding gap, especially for female founders, women in business who are looking to raise funds for expansion or to get started in business. Now, the roundtables, actually, what they do for us is they give us a discussion point, a topic, a place of reference to discuss various topics that intersect really with menopause. And we know that actually funding is one of those that has a crossover with menopause, with so many women now in their 50s in particular running businesses or starting businesses. So the topic, this funding gap, as they call it, it does exist. It's very real. I'm just going to give you some stats just so you understand where we're at the moment, because the funding gap and the reality for women over the last few decades, and you could say forever, has never really been a topic of conversation. We've just kind of put up with it. No one's really thought about it. There weren't really very many stats out there. But I can tell you now that it's only just over 2% of all venture capital funding goes to all female founded teams, just over 2%, which is absolutely awful because we know where the rest goes to. It goes to men that are founding companies and not women. So it's such a significant topic of conversation, and we've really got to shine the light on this. And then find a solution and find a way to work around it. Now, in Europe, so when we're looking across Europe, not just in the UK, female-founded businesses receive about 12% of all VC funding. So 12%, I mean, it's a little more than we get in the UK, but it's still very low. And women are approximately 63% less likely to secure venture capital than men, 63% less likely. So women-led businesses, they consistently demonstrate stronger capital efficiency, actually, and in many cases, they offer better returns. So why is there such a huge gap? I mean, we all talk about patriarchy, of course we do, and that is still a problem. But it's certainly not talent that's holding us back, is it, as women? It's actually just an allocation of money, of hard cash. So it's important to understand, though, I think, in business that not all funding routes are designed for the types of business that women actually start. Venture capital, for example, it's built on high growth and high scaling businesses. So investors are looking for exponential returns and eventual exits. So they'll be looking at, something that's going to move very quickly with an exit in the sight and huge returns. Now, that model works for some businesses, but it doesn't always work for businesses that women are building. Now, why does this matter? Well, it really does matter because many women are building in sectors like health and well-being, for example, like Meg, education and community. And we've got guest speakers this evening who are going to be talking about that. And these areas are critical, aren't they? And they're commercially viable. So, it's problematic, isn't it? Historically, they are so underfunded and completely misunderstood by investors. Now, there are some signs of progress. We are seeing some signs of progress. Unfortunately, that progress is coming from women, not necessarily men who are still holding a lot of the purse strings. So women are starting to raise funds for themselves, and other women are starting to invest in women-led businesses. And we've got to see more and more of that. But I don't think that's a complete solution. I think we've got to bring men into the conversation. If they are the ones that have got the money, let's bring them round the table And I was saying before we actually came on, could I get one round the table? No. Could I get a VC around the table? No. Which kind of says it all, doesn't it? If we can't even get one to come and talk about the issues of funding for women when we're opening a discussion like this, you know, we can see where the problems are. So let's continue talking about this and get insights then from our speakers this evening. So we've got Lisa Scully, who's going to be talking about her CIC. We're then going to be talking to Hope Peterson, who's in America. Lisa's in North Wales. And then we have Caroline and Sophie from Peachie. Peachie are a food company. They are a retail food company. And some of you may already know the brand, absolutely lovely brand. We've menopause approved it in 2024, I think it was, a couple of years ago. And it's really lovely to have their company this evening. So I'm just going to sort of slowly transition then into introducing you to Lisa, our first speaker, because the reason why I invited all of these women this evening is because I wanted to get better insight and a reality that's out there. Whether you're raising £10,000 or whether you're raising £1 million, the problems are still the same. It really doesn't matter how much you're trying to raise. We'll all experience the same problems. And so just gleaning some information and some insight and some experience from our speakers, I think is going to be valuable for all of us. So welcome, Lisa. It's lovely to have you with us.
Oh, hi. It's lovely to be here. Thank you for having me.
Now, I just wanted you to introduce yourself and just give us a little bit of information on what it is that you do, and talk about your CIC based in North Wales.
Okay, so hello everyone. Yes, I've been a menopause champion since August 2022, so coming up to nearly 4 years this year, and more recently part of the Menopause Pro roundtable, which I'm very honoured to be part of and to be invited on to. I moved to North Wales 2.5 years ago, but have been delivering in the community settings, education, awareness, and I'm basically holding space for many women with regards empowerment, education, and advocacy, I suppose. And alongside that, I set up a limited company in the last 2 years. We're looking for both working in the workplace, got background in organisational development and culture change, and as well as then using some of the money from that, investing into it myself, into the groups that I host to pay for the cost for doing that. So when I moved to North Wales 2.5 years ago, I connected in. The North Wales landscape is really ripe for connecting in around partnership, particularly in the community. And through a part-time role that I had through Wrexham University, I've been able to do that. And as a result of that, set up a CIC, Community Interest Company, for those who are not in the UK. It's a social enterprise. It's a social enterprise model. Set that up over a year now. We've celebrated our first year operating. So yeah, over in North Wales, not so sunny. No, it's very windy, and the village I'm at is above the snow line. So if it's going to snow, it snows here. So it's but apart from that, yeah, sort of set the CIC up with a community impact focus. So it's a not-for-profit enterprise, but we have to make money to be able to run it. So that's where I'm at.
Now I know that you've recently raised some funding, which is great. I just wanted to hear about your experience. And did you come up with any? Did you hit any brick walls? What did you find was difficult or complex when you're trying to raise funds, and how did you do it?
Well, to be honest, it's been an uphill struggle and continues to be so. So the funds that we've raised so far, which has been up to £5,000, some of that's been direct into the CIC, and some of that's been actual payments towards the cost of hiring a room, the cost for covering teas and coffees, and most of that is actually being done through connecting with people. We're in the process of doing a formal application now through the National Lottery, which I'll talk about in a second. But the main thing is actually using all the connections and partnerships. And I will talk to absolutely anyone about menopause and about Meg and about what I do. And, you know, fly the flag about the cause. But yeah, all of that effort and time, which seemed a lot of hours, has resulted in a total of £5,000 worth of funding. Some of that just before the CIC, because we were piloting a community-based model over in Mould, which is in Flintshire, and we were doing that in partnership with Theatre Clwyd, Wrexham University and Flintshire Unison. They all put money in towards it. They didn't pay us direct, they paid for things because we weren't established then. And then since then, I've been able to get little pots of funding and donations from other funders, I'd say again partners, who are able to put a little bit of their money, but they can't do too much because it goes against procurement rules. So yeah. So it's not been much, it's been hard work, but the learning from that is I'm learning a lot about the landscape around funding, and it has changed in the last 2 to 3 years when it comes to grant funding, which is what we're focused on. And it's looking at and having to think about actually what are our pillars of fundraising within the CIC. So as well as obviously getting paid work through workplaces and training and using the profits from that to put back into the CIC, we're looking at and, you know, trying to connect with through the connections we've made. And my co-founder is in arts and health. She's a PhD student in the arts and health side of things. We've been trying to connect in with as many people as possible, looking potentially at some philanthropy, fingers crossed, going to probably take another year or so around that. And that's with a very successful female business owner. So there's potential with regards to funding our community model. But a lot of it has been thinking, where's the effort going to be? So we've been having a debate whether to go for national lottery funding at a community level under 20k. But to be honest, I've decided to delay that. I'd rather put the effort in to go for the big one, for the funding for over 4 years, because I've seen too many third sector social enterprises and charities go down the route of chasing the funding and then not aligning themselves with the business values and what they were set up to do in the first instance. So it may be the harder route to take, but the national lottery funding, and most definitely it's all about partnership now. It's not about being, I mean, there's a CIC with 1 year under our belt and not much income that's gone through the books, although we've got loads of hours in kind and benefits in kind that we can demonstrate from free speakers have come along, myself, my time and my co-founders' time. We do need to, we've now got lots of connections in the health board, in third sector organisations right across North Wales, so that we can build up a bid that actually shows that the model got some proof of concept. It's got to get a little bit more proof of concept and then be able to go for the big bid for 4 years. So that's the...
It's a real catch-22 actually when you're fundraising, isn't it? And it can take a huge amount of your time and effort. So, you know, if you're putting in so much time and effort, that actually detracts from what you're trying to do in the business. I know I've experienced that myself. And although you've raised what some people might see as a small amount of money, you're quite right to be going for the big one, because actually what I've been told is it's easier to get 100,000 than it is to get 10,000.
Yeah,
it's not. It's an irony, isn't it, when you're looking at raising funds? And I suppose you're looking at lots of individual. Well, if you're going down the grant route, of course, that's great if you pick up grants, because it's not like having a loan. With a grant, you don't have to pay it back. So anybody who can then, you know, if you can get access to a grant, that's such a bonus, I think, for your type of business, but in particular. Whereas if you're going down the bank loan, you know, you're going to have interest and you know, tied into that. And for other businesses as well. If you were looking at equity, of course, you'd be selling parts of your business to gain that funding too. So it's quite complex, isn't it? But tell me a bit about the time that it's taken, just the time element that it would have taken for you in terms of labour hours, that type of effort, even to raise that amount of money.
Yeah, I mean, just probably for that. If I'm thinking in terms of how much time I have at the moment, so I work part-time as well, so that's how I'm able to self-fund some of the activities that I do in the community, as well as being able to then do some of the workplace stuff. So I wouldn't say it's massive amounts at the moment, but just to raise that sort of 5K, oh gosh, I wouldn't even know where to start with the hours I'm doing on sort of at least 10 to 15 hours a week on the CIC, and I would love to be doing a lot more than that. But at the time, prior to getting this part-time role I'm doing now, which is taking over my life, but never mind, it's giving me connections. I see the positive, it's giving me connections. Yeah, we're talking probably about 50 or 60 hours just to get the 2.5 grand we initially got. So, and then even more so, if I think about the time of writing things up and for the other half and the bits and bobs and the conversations that led up to that. So I couldn't even start to quantify it. It probably works out that I'm working for £1 an hour, if I'm lucky, in terms of, and I don't take the income from that. Obviously, we've raised money to pay for the community groups that we're hosting. So I don't take a profit from that. That's purely just to run them. I don't take any money for that directly at the moment.
Such a commitment, isn't it? And I think that's why going for more funding, going for funding that you actually need rather than sort of drip feed funding, it's a common sense approach, isn't it? Especially now you've had experience of the amount of hours that you're going to spend trying to get a very small amount. You're going to be questioning yourself all the time.
Yeah.
What have I done this for? Because that money is going to be spent very, very quickly.
Yeah.
And then you've got to do it all again.
Exactly. And I think that's where the thing, if you've got don't get me wrong, obviously any funding like the lottery funding or any that type of funding comes with a lot of monitoring, etc. We're not scared of that. I've done that in past roles. I understand the mechanisms and the infrastructure. We've got that set up and we can do that, not a problem. It is around the effort that we'll go through now for this funding and hopefully have a positive outcome in the next 6 months or so will be worth it, because then hopefully we've got at least a community model set up for at least 4 years. That's the plan.
Oh, it's amazing. Congratulations on all you've done. I mean, we've been watching you from a little distance, and you having been involved with Meg for so long now, we can see what you're doing, and it's just terrific. You just got to keep at it, haven't you? And dig your heels in, and it'll all come good, I'm sure.
It will. We've got plenty of connections now, and we've got the partners who will put their names on the bid, the Women's Health Plan in Wales. We've got somebody from a medical perspective. We've got all of the pieces that will make, the letters of, confirmation, the letters of support from the relevant people that will make a multi-partnership approach via us as the lead in terms of delivery, and we can then make sure that what we deliver isn't then diluted in any way. Because if you do go as the person that's part of a bid and you're not the lead, I think sometimes what you're trying to do can be diluted. So I think it's really important for us to be the lead with the support of others.
Lisa, that's lovely. So stay on the panel. Obviously, we're going to come back to you a little bit later, but we're going to now talk to Hope in America. Hope, it's lovely to have your company. I know it's a dreamy afternoon for you when we're all sat in darkness.
Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. But yes, it is. It is a beautiful day in North Carolina. I am on the East Coast, and we finally have a 75-degree weather here. We've had a very cold winter.
Oh, right. So that's very welcome then, a bit of warmth.
Yes, a bit of warmth.
Now, it's great.
Me.
Yeah, it's great to have your company. And again, just talking to you really about your what you've been doing and your experience of fundraising. So just tell everybody about what you're doing right now, how you got there, and your experience of fundraising in the past.
Okay. So I am a business owner. I started a business called Studio 8 Wellness Center about a year ago. And it basically was, I started that business because I have been in the fitness industry since 1989. I'm telling my age. And yes, Jane Fonda was a mentor of mine, not directly, but indirectly. I always loved fitness, teaching classes, and I was in corporate. I was in the corporate world for about 25 years. I sold analytics software, mainly to government accounts, U.S. government, state and local government, community government. And I'm telling you that now because I think it's going to be important as we link that into what I'm doing with my business. So I was laid off a few years ago, and in the midst of being laid off, I started really focusing in on personal training women. And through the years, as going through menopause myself, I was learning, from my clients that their symptoms around 40s and 50s were very strange, and there was really no education in my area in North Carolina. None of my doctors could tell me, what was going on with me, what was going on with my clients. And that's when a couple of years ago, the big, social media burst, blew up around menopause and menopause education. I was still not getting what I needed in terms of education. And I found your organization, and that was about, I guess, 3.5 years ago, and became a champion. And I'm so thankful for that, because still to this day, we really don't have the vetted education that Meg provides in the United States. If we do, I'm not aware of it. There's a lot of fluff that's on the internet right now, and it's really hard for women to really understand what's true, what's not true, and so I started my business, Studio 8 Wellness Center, and I started educating women in my community, which is Carteret County, which is I'm a coastal town on the East Coast, and educating them about, menopausal health. That turned into some workshops, and then personal training. What happened is I started running two businesses at the same time. And you might be saying, boy, that's lucky. No, it isn't. It was a nightmare. I had the fitness business that was addressing menopausal health, and then I had the education piece of the business that was addressing menopausal health in a different way. I love to educate. I love talking to women about resources that are available to them that can help them feel better in menopausal health, but I also love to work with women in a personal training capacity. So what I've done over the last 6 months is I really started focusing in on what is it going to take for me to really extend that education piece. And the best way for me to do that would be to start a nonprofit organization. And so the business piece is running its own. I actually have had a larger company come in and want to buy my equipment and and actually have me come in and work from a services standpoint. So my lease will be ending in a few months, and that's great because that's going to expand my reach. But now I get to focus on this nonprofit, and that's where I believe the funding from our community, from the state and local government, from the federal government, from all places, grants and things like that. That's where we're going to be able to pull in funding that's going to be able to educate women, and particularly in the grassroots area, the rural areas. These women, a lot of them don't have access to internet. Women don't have a lot of access to insurance. They're uninsured, they're either underinsured, or don't really understand social media. And so to be able to get into these communities and share our education and be able to educate them and link them with the resources that can help them feel better, but also provide them with money that maybe can get them those bone scans or get them the mammograms that they need, so on and so forth. That's what I'm thrilled about. So that's in a nutshell, and I know I've talked a lot, that's pretty much what I'm doing.
It's very similar to what Lisa is doing, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. It is. It's very similar. And I have to say, I would not be where I am today with this without Meg and without Meg's guidance and without Meg's materials. Because you know what? I can go out and I can talk to a group of women and I can talk to a group of men. I can talk to a bunch of corporate men and basically say, these are the statistics. And this is what's going on with women. And this is vetted information. It is sourced. And to have that confidence is such a big deal. Such a big deal.
And I'm guessing that that really helps when it comes to raising funds,
It
because
does.
you're going to
It
come
does.
across as more credible, more believable.
Yes, it does. That exactly. So, um, I really haven't dabbled in the corporate sponsorships yet, but I'm starting to. So, in the fall of the year, I decided that I was going to host a symposium, menopausal health symposium in the fall of 2026. I've had everything set up to be successful with it. I've had lined out who I wanted my sponsorships to be. And I started, soliciting funding for it. And I was shot down pretty quick. And a lot of these funding sources, and I'm talking corporate funding sources, I'm not talking about grants. I was shot down. There's still the education is lacking, and so I was like, how am I going to have a symposium? I'm thinking 200 to 300 women, bring in, a keynote speaker that's going to cost me 10 grand and reach who I want to reach, with no funding. So what I decided to do is let's downsize it and do a very small niche group of women, and let's see how we can grow that, in my little county and grow it across the state. So maybe we go county to county. And so I think the education piece of it from a corporate standpoint point is still lacking. It's menopause this is my opinion, menopause in the United States, based on what I see and who I've talked to on a regular basis, is noise right now. It's still taboo, but it's just noise. And so we have a lot of work to do.
I
A
think
lot.
you're still a couple of years behind where we are in the
Mhm.
UK. So we've seen the noise, we've heard the noise. It's starting to balance a little now. There's still a lot of noise,
Mhm.
but of course we are much, much smaller than the United States. But
Yeah.
uh, we kind of got very noisy very quickly about 5 or 6 years ago, and I think it took the United States a good few years to wake up. And yeah, we didn't see that, and certainly with Meg, we didn't see that until probably 2023, and then we could see the US waking up to this. And of course, now it's everywhere. But as you say, there'll still be a lot of noise.
It
Um,
is. And menopause is still a taboo word. So, I applied for a community-led grant, and I will just say that in the United States, community-led funding is a very great resource for women, especially in women's health. For funding sources for, women's health grants, that kind of thing. They can, when I say community-led funding, I'm talking about in your community. Like for instance, I want a grant through the Carteret County Economic Development Council. The Carteret County Economic Development Council, I became aware of this because I was involved in a very small women's business group. And, I know you're probably going to bring this up too, Dee. Partnering for funding has been very valuable for me. It's getting in front of your town leaders, getting in front of your community groups, letting people know who you are and what you're doing, and you will be led to the funding. And that starts at the here in North Carolina in particular, it starts at the county level, and then it goes to the state level, and then it goes to the federal government level. And so you basically have in the U.S. three sources of true funding, and it's federal, state, and local. And from a federal standpoint, those grants are very, very hard to get. Not, I mean, it's not, they're just hard to get, especially if you're starting out. A lot of the grants come from foundations like the Gates Foundation or the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, things like that. There are women's focus groups, but there's so many of them and so many people apply for them. But if you take a look at what your state funding looks like in the United States, then you can see, okay, where are my women, where does women's health fall? And you can go about it that way. Also, the community college here and also the university college system here has been a great resource for me as well. I actually lucked out and found a retired grant writer who was with UNC Systems, UNC Chapel Hill, and he's helping me apply for a few grants that are due in the fall. So there's a lot of funding there, and a lot of this funding is flowing through like Department of Health and Human Services, National Institutes of Health, and Centers for Disease Control. There's just so much. Your local health departments, getting to know the county health departments, who's doing what. In the county health departments, they tend to know where the grants are. Local community grants, like small wellness initiatives. Right here in the business area in the counties, there is a chamber of commerce, and that pulls together all of the businesses in town. So networking with these people, and then that helps you find those sources, and it
I
helps
think
improve.
Yeah, well, I think if you're just starting out, I think probably the most difficult thing is knowing what's available to you.
It is.
We find that in the UK, there are no end of grants, but it takes so much time and effort to actually find out and identify what grant might be applicable for you to apply for. So it would be in the same context as you were just saying, because a lot of people going for the same grant, and then you sort of think, is it the luck of the draw? Is it the person who speaks the loudest? Is it the person who's got the best idea? Who knows why people get chosen?
Yeah.
But I suppose if you don't know how to access grants in particular, I mean, you and Lisa, you ought to have a chat with each other. It'd be very interesting because of, there's lots of similarities there that I can see. But if you don't know where to access these grants or who to speak to, then that becomes a real funding block, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. It does. It definitely does. And, I'm finding, in just being in business, having a small business, a lot of it is who you know and who can help you. And it takes some time to ask people for help, and when you do, and and you're sincere about it, people are going to help you. They want to help you. You're there to help others, right? I mean, we're there to help women feel better, more confident in their skin. We want to make sure that the resources are available to them, and educate them on all the things. And so when that comes across as sincere, and then we have the backing of, an organization like Meg, that, it speaks volumes. It really does.
I think passion is infectious,
It
isn't it?
really is. It
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
It is. I worked in corporate. Rona and I've had this discussion. I worked in corporate for such a long time. And I work, in corporate, we work a lot of hours, just endless. But I never thought I would ever work as hard as I work now and as many hours as I put in. And I just, you become very passionate about what you do. And then when you find, that avenue that you can actually help make a difference to not just one or two women, but a lot of them, you just don't stop. It just doesn't stop.
And what advice would you give then to others that are like you? Perhaps we've got some champions that have tuned in.
I would say to start out local. I would say, find out, or find your local town government. Um, Learn, and then the same. You want to find out who are the people in town that are influential in terms of community development, healthcare, health related initiatives, maybe some of your local doctors, maybe women's groups, and just start going to events and calling and meeting with people, showing up at different things, and networking. Network. The other one is, we are, a friend of mine just gave me this idea the other day. She said, why don't we have a monthly Mahjong menopause social in the community? Mahjong is that card game. I haven't played it. I don't know how to play it, but I'm like, this is a great idea. Mahjong and menopause. Why can't we get together and talk about menopause? Have a hormone replacement doctor or nurse practitioner there to talk about, all things hormone replacement therapy. Get creative, have socials, have, the Menopause Cafe, have coffee talks, those kinds of things, and people will come. You might have two or three at first, but then it grows. And just start asking questions and listening.
It's the connection with people, isn't it?
It is. It's the partnerships. 200% is, I feel, it's partnerships.
Yeah, I think regardless of what's happening with AI, and
Yeah.
all the fear out there of people disconnecting, I think it's going the other way. I think that we are not really believing what we're seeing now online, and so we want to get out there and talk to real people.
I agree. And you know what? I think people want that. I mean, that's, when so I have attended the Dr. Vonda Wright's conferences for the last couple of years down in Orlando, Florida. And I've met her and talked with her about, how do we get into grassroots areas, what can we do to educate women in the rural areas in the counties in my state? And I said, because I think that where we're educating is at a very, very high level. And she said to me, she said, you have to put boots on the ground. And this is what I used to hear from one of my sales managers. It's boots on the ground. And you've got to start talking to the people. And you need to identify who your resources are. And when you do go and talk to people at events and conferences and things like, or small like socials, women's church groups, have a menopause social at a women's church group. Bring a medical professional with you. Get creative with it. But it's people they want to talk to people.
And I think
in the eye,
from fundraising point of view as well, is that your investor, your potential investor,
Exactly.
could be somebody that you would not expect.
It's true. That is so true.
Yeah. So anyone can be your potential investor, can't they, really? But you won't know until you're out there talking to them.
You never know.
Pleasure talking to you, and good luck with all your endeavours. It's fantastic. And I'm going to come back for some final words a little bit later. But now we're going to introduce Sophie and Caroline from Peachie, because this is a different conversation altogether now. So we've been talking about two community interest projects, really, from Hope and from Lisa. Now we're going to look at something very, very much more commercial, because there's a retail side to their business. The same way as Meg, actually. You know, we are a commercial business. We're not a charity. We're there to make profit, and I'm never shy of using the word profit. It's not a dirty word. It's something that we have to do if we're in business. We've got to make a profit, especially if you want to expand and you want longevity. Otherwise, you won't be around for very long. So, Sophie and Caroline, it's lovely to have your company. I can't see Caroline on my screen. Let me just scroll. Ah, there. I can see you now. It's lovely to see you. Now, I'm really, really interested in your journey, because, of course, I've seen you over the last couple of years. You're still a very, very young business, but I can see that you're growing and the excitement is becoming, you know, forever present. I see you popping up on my social media all the time. I think so. Just tell us about Peachie and your journey, you know, when you started and really where you are at right now.
Yeah, I'm going to start. I let Caroline Caroline's does the journey a bit better than I do. So you start, and I'll chip in.
Oh, no pressure. Okay. So yes, I guess it's been a couple of years since we started. So I think if we go back to the beginning, we've been working together for many years, and we decided that we'd been building food brands for other people for long enough, and we felt like doing it for ourselves. And so we started to look at different opportunities, and we saw that within the female health kind of area, there was nothing. And I was just getting to that sort of perimenopausal age, and I was faced with like these solutions that looked like massive tablets, and it just didn't feel like a very exciting or self-affirming kind of place to be, I guess. So I think way back when the first kind of insight came as there's loads of stuff going on for men for health, but what about women? You know, you've got all the grenade bars, all the functional foods, and it just felt like an area where if I needed support in nutrition, there was nothing out there that actually spoke to me as a woman, and certainly nothing out there that spoke to me as a menopausal or perimenopausal woman. So I think that was our mission, really, was to make female nutrition more accessible, more interesting, more exciting, less morbid, more interesting. And I think, you know, I think we talk about the funding gap, but actually there's been a huge gap in terms of female health and understanding female health. So I think our funding gap sort of mirrors the gap in sort of information and knowledge and understanding about female health. So I think we're doubly up against it in terms of trying to prove both in one concept. But yes, I'm waffling a little bit, but we really wanted to make a difference to you know, women's lives, and female nutrition and menopause felt like an area that was very relevant and underrepresented. And so that's where the journey began, really.
I suppose the thing I was going to add to that is one of the things is we've got 4 founders, of 2, but we're real foodies. And one of the things that we really, really were keen on was having something that always tasted delicious as well. So that, you know, something that you could really fit into your everyday life. And then the last bit of the jigsaw actually is also try and do something that gives back. So we've got, you know, we've created a D2C website business and a website, and we do a lot of stuff around community there. And we got involved with Meg almost immediately when we started, and Dee's been phenomenally supportive with what we've been doing, and that all combines with this bit of purpose. And if you've got a business with purpose, then it really makes you do the extra hours when you think, oh my word, why am I doing this? And both actually three of our four founders also run our own separate consultancy businesses. So this makes it's very full on, but also exciting and different.
So for those who don't know who you are, I mean, shame on them. Just explain what your products are.
Yeah. Shall I go, Caroline, or do you want to go?
Yeah, you go for it. I feel like I should have a pack. I'm so sorry.
I've got a pack. You start.
You've got a
I'll
pack.
get a pack.
So we are a whole food. So it was very important that we produced a lovely natural product. So we're a whole food combination of seeds and nuts with added vitamins and minerals. So instead of taking a tablet or a supplement, then it's all baked into the product. And so you just sprinkle it on food in the morning. It's great for your gut because of all the lovely fibre in it. And it's a way of incorporating that goodness without having to take a big tablet in the morning. And also the whole kind of like digestibility and sort of taking your nutrients when you're eating. And there's all kinds of benefits like great habit stacking. So if you're eating wonderful breakfast in the morning, it's a really good start to the day. So we're really about making nutrition delicious, but also very practical for people to incorporate into their lives. So that was our kind of ethos, was make it delicious and make it easy to add to your daily routine. So we started with two sort of sweet flavors. So we've got almond and cranberry, and then almond and cranberry and hazelnut and cacao. And then we recently brought out a lovely savoury topping, which is walnut and that one. You've got your blur on, so we can't see it.
I'm going there now. There you go.
That's it.
Okay.
So that's a walnut and puffed quinoa with tamari and seeds and nuts. So yeah, it's really, I don't know. I hope it's delicious. If anyone would like us to send them some samples and in the post, we'd be really delighted to do that because we really value your opinion and what you think of it. So yeah, please just drop us a text or something with your address and we'll send you a sample in the post to try.
I think it's super, and I just love the ethos and everything about Peachie and the way that you're building your community. And if I had a pot of money right now, I'd absolutely invest in you, and maybe that will come. But so where are you in terms of the business now? Because I know that you're looking to grow and expand, and I've seen now that you're retailing into supermarkets. Am I correct? You're in the supermarkets now. I thought I'd seen that. So where are you up to on your fundraise, and also just perhaps explain, not to be negative, but where are you hitting a brick wall? Are there any pain areas, which I'm sure there are, and I'm going to talk about my pain areas a little bit later. Goodness me, there's quite a few. So tell us a little bit more about your fundraise.
Yeah, shall I start, Caroline, or do you want to go?
You go for it.
I think we're actually on. Sounds a bit. We're actually on. We had some initial founder investment and then family investment quite early on, and then we went for a raise, and we got a raise really through word of mouth. Actually, Dee suggested someone, and we spoke to them, and they actually wanted to invest. We were really, really lucky. It was about the very early person. And obviously our business plan must have been all right, otherwise they wouldn't have done. And I think that food businesses are difficult because they require a lot of investment. And we have spent the last 2.5 years, I think, really learning how to grow the sales. And we now have a way that we think we know what we're going to do. We're in retail. The retail bit was super interesting because nobody in retail was doing food and menopause. In fact, they didn't have a menopause fixture. And then they started to do that. And then they created a menopause fixture. And we got into Tesco because they were thinking about a menopause fixture. We were one of only 2 brands to get into Tesco. And we're retail background, so we know how to pitch to retailers and all that stuff. And Tesco they're pleased with where we are within them. I think the fixture is not like where you'd normally buy food. So we think there's a lot of evolving that has to happen in retail. We've also recently got listed in Ocado. Of course, that takes away the barrier of where people want to shop. So that has been a really successful launch, and it's going really well. And so as a result of that, we know that actually this whole community piece is really important to us, and we see that our growth will be through D2C mostly. We see that route as really driving, and we also know that D2C takes quite a lot of money in order to do that. So we're currently in our second major fundraising round. We've raised half the money already, so we're really pleased with that. We've got enough certainly to get going on our plan the way that we want to go after it. And then we're still talking to loads of other investors. In terms of getting to those people, it is tricky. So we've done. We belong to a few groups. So we belong to an organisation called Bread and Jam, which is like for startups for food businesses. There might be other organisations for similar sorts of businesses. And we also belong to a group called Buy Women Built. So and they have events. And there was one more, I can't remember what the third one was, Caroline, I'm sure you'll chip in a minute. But so we went to a Bread and Jam event, and one of our founders did the 1 minute pitch, where not only a few people put themselves forward to do the 1 minute pitch, which is really scary in front of investors, in front of all the other businesses. And then out of that, we got 2 people who were very serious to talking to us. And one of those, cross fingers, we were doing the paperwork this week for getting one of those on board, which is great. A man, which is also interesting. And then one of the things I think we learned is we now are speaking to angel investors who are too small to go to VCs mainly. You have to be turning over quite a lot. And the one question we have, and we presented to quite a lot of people, is at the end of that call, we always say, is there anyone else in your network you think might be interested? And as a result of that, we're starting now to network a lot, and I've still got lots of active conversations going on from that. And I think that's one of the things that you don't realize how hard it is, how much networking it is. And there are 4 of us, so we have to, rewrite business models, replan that, all that sort of stuff takes a lot of time and really focuses a huge amount of energy. And then I'd focus on the numbers. So we've got enough of us to split some of the time, but it probably takes up, I don't know, 30 to 40% of our time at the moment. It's a lot. I think that's probably fair. Maybe that's a bit of an exaggeration, Caroline.
It's a massive distraction from being able to actually do, what you want to do, which is drive the business. But it's just cash, isn't it? Cash flow.
Absolutely echo what you say about time. I went on a funding round in 2022. We had some initial seed funding in 2021 from an angel investor who so that was really good for our just beginnings. And then in 2022, because I'm somebody who wants to move really quite quickly, we decided that actually we would probably end up having to go down the VC route, and it took me out of the business for about 8 months. It was so full on. I absolutely hated it with every fiber. I just found it debilitating, actually, because you have to do it as a founder. There's no one else who can go and do that sort of pitching. There's no one else that's got that amount of, energy that you need behind it, let alone putting your pitch deck together, which took forever. Not so much now with the invention of AI, but actually then it was really difficult, and you want it to be right. So I absolutely hated it, and I dropped it because I just got to a point where I threw my hands up in the air because I felt that there was still quite a lot of misogyny within the VC world. All men that I was talking to, no women. Some of the men were very young. They were very young, so they didn't really understand menopause. So there's a limited knowledge, and this is still really before they could see the huge potential that we have in women's health in a broader sense. But at that time, of course, just menopause. And I remember talking to my team and certainly my partner, James, and saying that if I put the same amount of effort back into the business, we'll turn a profit. And that's what I did. Now, we're probably going to be looking at a funding round later this year for further expansion, but it's a really, really difficult task, I think. Easier with angels, I think, because you can build a relationship with angel investors. But I think that when you're going out for funding, and as I said earlier, it doesn't matter whether you're looking for funding for £5,000 or £50,000 or £500,000, the principle is still the same. And having those relationships and building relationships with people, as I was saying to Hope, I think you could be talking to your future investor, you wouldn't know, but you just got to be as passionate as you always are about your business and seize every opportunity to talk about it in a very passionate way, and then see how things go, because we don't always know where funding's going to come from, do we? We look at the traditional funding routes, which are when you first start, friends and family. Let's make sure that they understand. Come on, support me. And then we might be looking at the bank, which of course is a really, really tricky route, because often they want secured loans. So you often see entrepreneurs put their house up to start with, which can be really tricky, particularly for other family members. And there's this whole conversation, because when your house is collateral, there's other people involved in that conversation quite often. Or you go down if you're looking at more funds, then you go down the angel route. And then if it's even larger sums, then the VC route seems the more natural way for a lot of female founders. But it's tough out there. I think it's really, really tough out there. And we're challenged now, aren't we, with wars everywhere and this uncertainty, which I think is making investment now even more uncertain, because people just don't know what the markets are going to do at the moment.
Is it worth talking about SEIS and EIS? Does everybody understand that, do you think?
No, yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're both. We're SEIS and we're EIS. You can talk about that, because are you approved on both?
We're going through EIS at the moment, but we're approved on SEIS. So effectively, if you set your business up as SEIS, angel investors can invest, and then they get back. And there are rules about it. There's some fair, and you have to do it in exactly the right way when you first start out. But angels investors can get that. They can get 50% of their investment back on a tax return for an SEIS, and it's 30% on EIS. So then it means it takes quite a lot of the risk away on an SEIS for an investor. And then if the worst ever happened, then they'd be able to claim back. So they only actually have to invest something like 18p in the pound. That's what they actually lose. So there's an upside of having a big upside of having SEIS as a business. The process is a little bit difficult, and we use, and by the way, the cost of legals, and I don't want to put anybody else, but the cost of legals and doing all the legal stuff is, we've learned a whole load of stuff I never knew anything about, and I'm still not an expert, and you get documents that you don't really understand. But there's a company called Seed Legals that's very good for startups, or quite good for startups. And then there are individuals who are very good, and we found them reasonably good for some of the stuff and not so good for other stuff. So I don't know if you want to add to anything to that, Caroline.
It's just like, I don't know if anyone's read that book, Bleak House, where you get all the legal stuff and you just do not know what it means. We're fairly intelligent women, and we're going, what does this mean?
You read a clause. I'm not a lawyer.
There's four of us.
I read a clause, and I'm not a lawyer, but I've spent a lot of time in business. And I look at it and go, oh, and I lose the will after the fifth clause. I've lost the will to live, and I have to go back and go, tell me what it means.
Copy paste ChatGPT, or Denzel, my ChatGPT is called. Can you just tell me what this is in layman's terms, really? You know, what
Yes,
does
we
this
do that.
mean?
Yes, more of that. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and it also takes so long, doesn't it? The legal paperwork just takes so long. It can drag out for months. So if you're on a very limited runway, which of course you are, you know, when no one is swimming in cash when they first start a business. No one is. And I think that most of us as founders will underestimate the cost of startup, you know, and that's regardless of whether you've got, I mean, it's more tricky for you both because your product, right? So your money goes into product development, your money goes into product. That's literally money sitting there in a product,
which goes off, by the way.
Yes,
if you don't sell it in time.
Yeah.
So you're up against the clock.
Yeah, really, really tricky. And yeah, I think a lot of people will underestimate that. And of course, that's, you know, one of the reasons why funding is so necessary for any growth of business. Because
food business needs
food business. Yeah, products on the whole, I think, because you're tying up so much capital is risky business. You need to know what you're doing, don't you?
Well, the only thing I would say, sometimes it depends. So that one of the things that you can decide to do minimum order quantities with various people. And of course, we've done stuff like that at various times. That means that your cost of product and your profitability is lower initially. But it doesn't mean you tie up so much stock. And if you work on a D2C model, then naturally your cash flow is reasonably good because you get paid immediately. Yeah, but the cost of getting, you know, new customers and stuff is always expensive. So that you know, there's a whole business. You can imagine the numbers bit is quite big in what we're doing.
Yeah, and so for our champions, some of them will be tuned into this, and others will be watching later on. You know, I think that when you're starting out, particularly if it's a small business, and particularly if you're a sole trader, you know, a sole entrepreneur, it can be very lonely out there, which is why Meg is a lifeline for so many. But often you're still having to hold on to one rope until the other rope is available. So in other words, you're going to be running another business, or you've still got your other full-time job, or you're, you know, because this might be a passion project, but you still need to pay the bills. And I think sometimes that also overburdens women in particular, particularly when you're going through menopause, because you might have other challenges in your life. You might be a caregiver to elderly members of the family. It might be that you still have young children at home because, you know, they won't all have fled the nest, so they might still be at home. So you've still got all of those other things going on in your life, and you're trying to prepare this transition from perhaps an employed role into, you know, your passion project, which will mean that actually if you don't sell anything, you're not going to earn anything, which is why I say, you know, holding on to one rope until the other one is available to you. And that can be quite tricky, can't it? And I think a lot of our champions will understand that. And the reason why I mention it is, even though there are 4 of you that founded Peachie, you're still having to generate revenue, aren't you, elsewhere, you know, in another business in order to grow the future business.
We have 1 full-time employee inside, and the other 3 of us are effectively, you know, we're not paying ourselves still because, you know, it's the right thing to do. We've got to grow. You know, the thing is about growth, isn't it? And
there's huge sacrifice, I think, in the early days. And we're in year 6, and Rona and I were talking the other day. You know, we're still a startup, year 6, and I didn't realise that until I was at a Congress meeting, actually, in 2022 or 2023 in Paris, and it was full of female founders. It was a women's health sort of convention, Congress meeting, and it was terrific. But there were companies there that were pitching that were 10 or 11 years old, and they were still pitching as startups. And I remember thinking, how can they be pitching as a startup when they're 10 years old? But actually, I get it now. I get it, because it can take a long, long time to develop something that's truly meaningful with longevity. And I think from an outsider's point of view, they kind of think, well, if you haven't got it by year 10, you're never going to get it. But that's not strictly true. And they were very tech led. So there would have been a lot of advancements throughout that decade, constantly changing their original concept and moving with the times. So it's quite an eye opener. And this is why the round table is quite good, because we're looking at insights and experience and knowledge from other people, because you can make assumptions, can't you, about businesses? As I'm always saying, 99% of all businesses are based on perception anyway. But you can have that perceived idea of what it takes to run a business. But the reality is that most of us will make it look easy on the outside, but on the inside, it's hard work. You can't change that. It's hard work in any business.
I think we're talking about the menopause, and I think everybody said this so far today is in terms of, market, we're still quite early doors. It is coming as more products come, and that is great, because then everybody will have more options and people will start to buy more things that are relevant for them, whether that's going to a community interest group or doing stuff like we're doing. But we have to remember that because we live, breathe it, and all the time, actually it's still quite, I still believe it's quite an early market. And I think, if you talk to, I think one thing about investors, I think they're starting to understand that it is a massive market, and they absolutely understand there will be products that will do really well. I'm not saying necessarily food products, but there will be products in lots of sectors that will do very well. I don't know if you've got anything to add to that, Carol.
I just, listening to you speak, Dee, just resonates so much, because it takes so long, doesn't it, to get traction? And from the outside, it looks, oh yeah, we're in Ocado, it's brilliant, but it's really hard work. And actually, things take so long, and that friction, or not the frustration, but the juggling that's going on at the minute between looking after kids, looking after family, looking after another business, launching Peachie. I mean, I don't think I've ever worked as hard, and I've come from corporate and I was hardworking. I'm kind of that 90s generation who just really worked super hard. So I'm not scared of hard work. I just finding it incredibly challenging at the minute, if I'm honest, because of all the other things that have to kind of be put on ice, if that makes sense. So yeah, really resonates with me that it's not the easy option, but if you think about that future point where you've got to where you need to get to, where you've got the traction, where you've got the right model, where you've built something from scratch, and actually it's something that makes a difference to people's lives, then actually you start to think, well, this is worth it. Got to do it. There's something starting to happen, and you get that germination of like an idea that turns into more than a concept. And we've been proving concepts, and essentially what we've done is we've spread ourselves so thin that actually having some focus and some clarity now about going after sort of direct consumer sales, instead of trying to be in farm shops, in health food shops, in wholesale, in retail. Like, there's 3 of us who work a day and a half, probably 2 days a week. We should only work a day because we've got our day jobs, but you were probably working 2 days a week in Peachie and 1 full time. It's not enough to do all of those channels, because they all need love, they all need nurture, they all need resource. So actually, I think trying to, if you can get proof of concept on a small scale first, and try lots of things out first before you decide what the right business model is, then that's something that I think makes sense. I think I'd really recommend that early stage of research and trying out different things before you give up the day job, obviously. But yeah, lots of learning. But the other really positive thing that I don't think we've touched on is that when you work in a female-centric universe, boy, is that rewarding, because you talk to women and you're like, we're bossing it. I'm sorry, but like, we're not taking this anymore. We're not going to get quietened. There's no one going to go, shush, we're not going to talk about it. So I just think there's something incredibly rewarding about working with other women. And that's what I love about Peachie. I love the fact that it's for female founders. We've got very little ego. There's nothing I can say to Sophs. And there's actually, it just feels like I don't have to be anything other than myself. And when you're used to masking in a male corporate world, then actually there's also something super rewarding about that. And I'm really feel like, I don't know, privileged really to be able to kind of to work with other women and help other women and say, do you know what? It's time that we took the lead on what we want for ourselves, if that makes sense. So
Definitely.
that's
kind of
my little
I agree. Couldn't agree.
passion.
Yeah, Caroline's passion is brilliant. But this weekend I play tennis, and I went to my tennis club, and someone came up to me and said, "Oh, I'm having dreadful problems with menopause." And because they knew what I was doing in Peachie, and I was able to say, obviously, I said, go and see a GP. I did all the stuff that we should do in terms of no individual advice, but say, make sure you go and start to speak to somebody. And she didn't realise that she might be perimenopausal. And it's just those sorts of conversations as well, which I've done a lot of standing in farm shops doing sampling, and I've had so many conversations with people where I've just pointed them in the direction of, signposted them to people to go and speak to. And that as well really is, feels like you're trying to do something good as well as a launch product.
Yeah. And I think as an entrepreneur, having honest conversations with other entrepreneurs where we can all relate to, we have days when you just say, oh, I don't want to do this anymore. No, that's it. I can't do this anymore. This is just, and then 10 minutes later, you're already coming up with the next solution to whatever problem. And everybody else can't keep up with you because you're running at 200 miles an hour. And your brain is just hardwired to think of a million things in one go, and everything is going round and round and round. I think that most entrepreneurs will feel like that, and you'll get days where you just think, I can't do this anymore. And it's okay, I think, to feel like that. And particularly when you're going through a funding round, because I think it is difficult because you're wanting to run, aren't you? You're wanting to run. And the only thing that's holding you back is this lack of funds. If only we had the money, think of what we could do. And those are conversations that entrepreneurs have as well, because that's the truth of it. And so if we can get more money into the pockets of women, goodness me, the talent that I've seen whilst I've been doing this over the last 6 years, it makes me want to be 30 years younger, just so I can see what women are going to achieve over the next 30 years, if that makes sense. Because I can just see this leap forward for women that's coming. It's going to take a while. It's going to take a while. But I can see there's light. There's light coming, and we just mustn't give up. We just got to keep going and keep moving forward and keep saying all these fantastic things to people and get them all on board. And that's where I think that we will then start seeing more men investing in women. I mean, men need to invest in women in all sorts of areas, but more money. We want the money.
One of the things I think is interesting is I think that, and I may say this, I think women are potentially more cautious in their building of the numbers because we tend to, I think we often build from the bottom up and go for, whereas men go, here's the size of the market, I can get this, I'm being really simplistic here, but it then feels a bigger prize. And one of the things that we have learned in this funding round is actually you have to show how big the prize could be in really clear, open terms, rather than going, well, I know if I do it like this and I build from everything, it's going to be a bit like this. So I think that's something that I think that is quite interesting. And I think you said at the beginning, Dee, that women the actual numbers they say when they go are much more likely to be realistic than not all the male people who go for all the men who go for funding. So I think there is something there that maybe if we're women, we need to go away and go, are we being optimistic enough but still realistic in sometimes when we're going for stuff?
And I think that we've just been told we can't have things for so long that it's in our kind of psyche that we shouldn't be asking, or we don't deserve it, or whatever. I think there's something in the female psyche as well that doesn't want us to be out there and brash about it. And it's almost like we're apologizing because we need some money. We're very apologetic, but actually we need funding. And we shouldn't be like that. But I think we're hardwired to be like that. And that's why I think there should be more female funders out there. There should be more access for us to gain access to those, because there are women that can invest huge amounts of money. And even if the ones who can't invest huge amounts of money, let's just get plenty of the ones who can invest some. Because often you don't need huge amounts. When I was talking to VCs, I was asking for £750,000. Not a huge amount of money, but I was told it would be easier if I asked for 10 million. And I said, but I don't need 10 million. And they said, yes, but it would be easier to get 10 million. I'm pulling my hair out at that point. I'm just thinking, I don't understand what you're saying. You're saying, if I ask you for 10 million, that's going to be easier than if you invest for 750,000. I just don't get it. Yeah. So I think it's quite a complex world, and unless you come from banking and finance and VC land, it's very difficult to understand it. And I'm not a corporate person. I'm much more a person. So I want to have a conversation with a real person who totally gets it. And then actually, I'd quite like you to invest if you've got some money to invest, and not be afraid to ask. Do you like to invest in what I'm doing? So it's interesting, isn't it? Everyone's take is different on trying to raise funds and how we do it and who we go to, because there's a lot out there that we can tap into. But as I was saying to Hope earlier, you only know what you know, and if you don't know where you can get grants from, if you don't know that you're able to go and get a loan, if you don't know that you can talk or pitch to to a panel of angel investors, and then God forbid if you've got to go down the VC route, which I just think is very difficult and very demanding, and I think you have to have your eyes wide open to go down that route. You're almost selling your soul, but it's a tricky world out there. And I think most women in business, certainly the women that I meet, that I talk to, that I mix with, all have really good intentions. I don't want to mix with the other ones. I think if we can all have good intentions, if you've got a great product, if you've got a great service, fantastic. Let's just get it out there and get funding for those good people doing good things. More conversations like this, I think. Well, lasting thoughts then, or the last words. I'll go back to Lisa. Lisa, you're still there. Any last words for this roundtable session?
I found it absolutely inspiring, and hearing the different stories. And by the way, I put it in, but it's in the private chat. I think it's gone to you, Dee. I love Peachie. Bought some at the conference in September 2024. I never looked back. So it's lovely. It's tasty, and it's good for the movement of something. So it's really good. So but in terms of the story and the learning from both, no matter what you're going for, the principles are the same, aren't they? It is that connection. It is that trying not to sell your soul to the devil type of thing. It is about being brave enough to say, no, that's not going to work for us. So you said the direct to customer route, you've made your mind up now, that works for you. And that's brave to sort of know that's where you're going to put your mind to. Same as I won't get taken down a path just to get a couple of grand into the pot, because otherwise it'll take me away from what my main purpose is. So I really think that's strong. But yeah, thank you, and Hope as well. In terms of all the different levels, and I love the socializing thing. Actually, I do groups, but I think the socializing thing you've given me a few ideas. So watch my posts. I'm not too sure what Marjan is, but I'm not too sure it'll be that, but it'll be something.
Brilliant. And Hope, any last words from you this evening?
It has been great to connect with everybody, and I be looking out for a text or an email from me, because I'd love to reach out to each of you. I've learned so much. Just to everyone out there that's listening, don't give up. Just keep going. If you have someone tell you no, then go find two people that'll tell you yes. It's one of those things that it just continues to build credit, and you're doing all the right things. It just keep moving forward. We're all in that together, and um, you know, if anyone has any questions, or if about what I presented today, or if you've got any ideas, you want to share, whatever, please reach out to me. I'm very reachable. I'm on social media, and then you can reach out to me through WhatsApp, and through the Menopause portal, whatever. Just reach out and ask your questions, and I'll be glad to help. And as I'm sure any of us would be. But it's been a pleasure, and I thank you.
It's really nice. Thank you, Hope. Caroline, final words from you?
Oh, I don't know what to say. I just think it's amazing that we're all together here, and thank you to you and to Meg and to the network. And it's just brilliant to be part of a group of women like this. And Hope, you've given me hope, which is, I'm sure it's not the first time you've heard that, and Lisa, I'm just brilliant that another fellow Welsh resident is in this universe. I'm down in Haverfordwest, but come up to North Wales quite a lot. So yeah, I'd love to meet up for coffee at some time. And I extend that open welcome, any questions. And if anyone hasn't tried and would love to, then just let me know, and we'll send you a sample of Peachie. But yeah, thank you.
You're very welcome. Sophie, over to you.
Well, I was going to say that Caroline said it all from our perspective. I think I would just say, as everybody else says, I think test and try to start with. If you've got a product or a service, go and talk to your consumer, or whoever it's going to be. Understand whether they like what you've got, how you can build it, how you can make it better. We've spent 2 years now testing and building, and I'm sure we haven't got it 100% right, but we've now got a plan, and we know where we're going to focus. So I think, we've learned an awful lot on that. Maybe we could have done it faster. I always think that, but maybe we could not. I think Caroline would say not. But that's my last thought.
No such thing as failure. We're just always learning, aren't we? And if something doesn't work, find a way that it does. Just look for how to make it work. And I think belief is everything. If you don't have belief in what you're doing, no one's going to buy anything from you. And I would say do something else, because if you really don't believe in what you're doing, you're in the wrong business. Just do something else. Do something that you do believe in. So I'll leave you with that. It's been a smashing round table. Really, really lovely. Can't wait for the next one. Our next round table. Well, we have 2 round tables actually coming up in April. Can't give you the dates because they are still to be determined. But we're going to, the next one is equity, inclusion and menopause. And then after that, we're turning our attention to early menopause and fertility transitions and clinical pathways to early menopause. So that's going to be really, really good. So we've got a couple of cracking round tables in April. Feel free to join us. But from me for now, it's been absolutely lovely and worth sitting here in the dark talking to you all. It's been brilliant. Have a wonderful, wonderful evening or afternoon, Hope, wherever you are in the world. And we'll see you again on the next round table. And thank you very much to our speakers, Sophie, Lisa, Caroline and Hope. Thanks very much. Bye for now. Bye, everybody.